All right, here it is. You asked for it, you're going to get it. This is the Talkbox tip that you have been waiting for, and you didn't even know it. That's right. But it comes with a catch. You see, you're not going to like what I have to say. You probably won't, because I'm pretty sure you've convinced yourself that all you need is a DX100 and a Golden Throat or the Talkstar. And you are going to be the most killer Talkbox player there ever was, right? That's all you need. Well, I'm here to tell you different. What if I told you that it didn't matter what kind of gear you had, and it didn't even matter how technically skilled you were either? There's only really one thing that makes Talkboxers like Fingers and Mr. Talkbox so prolific. You know what that is? Are you ready? You sure? Okay. But you got to do me a favor, though. Put some stank on that like button for me. And make sure you hit the subscribe channel if you want to hear another Talkbox tip. Here is the Talkbox tip that you don't want to hear. You see, what makes a Talkbox artist prolific, one like Fingers or Mr. Talkbox, is that they have perspective. Not on the Talkbox. They have perspective on the human voice. You see, what Roger did with the Talkbox is no different than what Stevie Wonder did with the Talkbox. It's no different than what Peter Frampton did with the Talkbox. And it's no different than what pretty much any other prolific Talkboxer does. The Talkbox is an extension of the human voice. And the privilege that you get when you're using this instrument is that every time you hit the note is always on target. As a vocalist, that's something that you work very, very hard on, coming from the muscles of your throat. You're working on that muscle memory in your throat, in your vocal cords, right? But you get to apply that here on the Talkbox, so you can see it, right? But then you have to think a little bit differently in terms of how you're applying what you want to hear to this instrument. But what really matters the most is the perspective. You need to have perspective on the human voice. Me being a vocalist is what gives me the edge on the Talkbox. That and a couple of other things. I have strong production skills. I'm not the best by any means at all, but I have strong production skills. I have mixing and engineering skills. And so I have perspective on the technicalities of how you can capture a performance as well, which also means quite a lot. But there's nothing that is more significant than a Talkboxer with an actual perspective on the human voice, because that's what the Talkbox is. It's an extension of the human voice. That's at least the spirit in which that most Talkboxers approach, right? Again, coming from the spirit of Peter Frampton, Stevie Wonder, Roger Troutman. Right? You listen to that Stevie Wonder clip, and you listen to the way that he plays that Talkbox, that real famous one. He can sing that just as well. He can easily sing what he was playing on the Talkbox. It's just a slightly different tone because he's using the Talkbox as his vocal box, right? This is no different. Roger's not doing anything different. He is just using the Talkbox to bring to life the voice that he wants to have. Now, he's not a strong singer, but he's a strong producer, and he's very strong on his mixing. Right? He had perspective on that. So depending on where you are on your journey, here is my advice. If you are flat out, you got nothing, you got no Talkbox, no keyboard, grab a MXR 222, get the MXR piece. That's the cheapest, it's easy, painless, no headaches. Just grab that and then hook it up to your computer, and you'll figure that part out. You'll figure out how to get the tone, right? There's a billion videos out there that'll tell you how to get the tone and how to set it up. There's a billion videos that'll tell you how to play scales and all that stuff. But when it comes to the actual top boxing part and, putting the tube in your mouth, of course, you need to take some time to figure that out too, the size of the tube and all that stuff, right? But once you've gotten over these are short learning curves, because, after you've gotten past that learning curve, there's pretty much not much more to it. Once you find the tone, you got the tone. Once you find the size of the tube you like, you got the tube, right? Once you get past those initial learning curves, right, and you can imitate a Roger song or two, here's my advice. You ready? Hope you're ready. This is what I think you should do. Stop playing the Talkbox for a minute and start listening to voices. Listen to different singers. Listen to, I'm just going to throw a few out there. Listen to Luther Vandross, Kim Burrell, right? You like Brandy, you like Beyonce, you like Faith Evans, you like those voices? Listen to Kim Burrell, right? Michael Jackson. Listen to these voices. Learn how to analyze vocal styles. Right? If you learn how to analyze these vocal styles, you will be able to easier figure out ways for you to implement them into your Talkbox playing. One great way of doing that is doing cover songs, of course. But what that's going to do is give you a little bit of perspective on that particular vocal style, those particular types of harmonies, and then everything else around that, the technical part in terms of knowing scales and harmony, scales and chords and things like that. All that is, you're using that knowledge to be able to analyze what it is that you're listening to, whatever it is that you like to hear. Right? I get the advantage, again, because of my vocal background. I went to two particularly kind of world-renowned choirs. And I was young by the time I left them, but I took a lot of that information with me. So I went to the New York's Young People's Chorus, still today one of the very well respected choir. And I also went to the Boys Choir of Harlem. Again, I was young, but this was maybe about an 8-year span or so of both the choirs together. Anyone who went to Boys Choir of Harlem will tell you that was crazy. They beat some of that stuff into you, like literally. I can almost say that I served in the Boys Choir of Harlem. Right? I mean, some things that are baked into my mind in terms of analyzing vocals. This is also a skill that Roger Troutman had. Roger Troutman, before he picked up the Talkbox, he already knew what he wanted his voice to sound like. You can hear that in his old records. And he was singing himself. It wasn't strong. But when he got the Talkbox, then it came to life. I mean, it could have been anyone to do it, really. Right? But Roger had the conviction. And that was actually the next little tip that I, kind of like wanted, like half a tip that I'd throw at you. You got to have conviction. You got to be determined to nail this thing, because there are a lot of learning curves. But once you get past those learning curves, they kind of stop at a certain point. But the whole purpose of this video, with regards to the Talkbox, what I'm saying to you is that playing the Talkbox is merely just an extension of the human voice. If you've never sang a day in your life, you don't know what it feels like to sing. You don't know what it feels like to go, ah. If you don't know what that feels like, you won't be able to really apply it the same way when you're emulating a vocal from some other song or or if you're just listening to Roger Troutman, you won't even really be able to parse what's going on, because there's so many small little nuanced details that goes on in a vocalist's head as they're going through their arrangement. The vocalist has a vocal arrangement, right? There's also a thing called vocal production too. That's something that Roger was very good at too. If you watch some of his, some of these candid videos of him in the studio with some of the other vocalists that were in his band, he's right next to them at the microphone, telling them in the ear how he wants it to sound. No, a little bit like this. No, try it like that. No, try it like that. So if you got your Talkbox, you got your keyboard, you got the tube that lights up, and the Talkbox is 7,000 watts of pure horse engine power or whatever. None of that matters. It doesn't matter whether you can play 6,000 notes in a second with 2 fingers. It doesn't matter if you have to use your arms and your elbows to play a pentatonic scale. If you play the pentatonic scale, you play the pentatonic scale. It doesn't matter. It's about how you play it, right? It's about the dynamic range that you're using, going in and out of the microphone. Right? How long are you holding the note? How far are you letting the vibrato go? How early are you bringing the vibrato in? Are you lifting a note before you hit the main note? Right? A lot of people do that. A lot of people don't even realize what's going on these little tiny details of a vocalist, particularly, a soul, R&B, kind of gospel-based vocalist. Right? So this is, I think, this is the most powerful advice that I can give you when it comes to the Talkbox. I'll go over all the basics, but the most powerful advice that I can give you as a Talkboxer is that you have to find your own voice first, right? Before you can apply that to the Talkbox. If you're doing all of that at the same time while you're learning the Talkbox, it's a never-ending circle you'll be in. So stop for a minute and listen to some of your favorite vocalists, but from a different perspective now. And you can take that perspective with you and apply it to your playing, right? Again, the techniques, you can learn that, right? The fingering techniques to get back and forth across the keyboard a little faster, or whatever. Even if you're playing the guitar or whatever other instrument, you can learn the techniques from that. You can easily learn the right settings that you need that's going to work for you. You can easily play around with that. You'll find that. That's coming. If you want it, you got conviction, you're determined to do it, that's coming. But if you have zero perspective on what it means to actually sing, or how to direct another singer, you won't be able to have that. You won't be able to use that perspective on yourself when you're making your recordings or when you are on stage with your Talkbox. You don't have that perspective. What mics to use, how to use those mics, how to use what you got in the situation that you're in. All of those things, that kind of perspective, that comes with lots of experience, and you have to put yourself in that situation, right? You have to really go headfirst into that. All right, so if you ask me, doesn't matter what the gear you have. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter how technically skilled you may be. Roger said it himself. It doesn't really matter. It all remains the same. The only thing that is going to make it slightly different is you. You have to come up with your own unique concoction of spices. The spices don't change, right? It's about your mixture. And for you to find that mixture, you have to expose yourself to more than just the Talkbox, because the Talkbox is inspired from the human voice. That's it. So guys, that is my ultimate Talkbox tip, and I'll be working myself backwards from there. Now, if you appreciate this video, slap some stank on that like button, hit the subscribe button as well, and the notification bell, so you'll know when the next video is coming, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you, everyone. Peace, and may the stank always be with you.